Hey folks, it's been a while. My name is Brian and welcome back to Poli Tic Talks. So in the last week and a bit, in the US, Hope Hicks has agreed to testify in front of the House of Representatives. Sarah Sanders has announced that she's quitting. President Trump had that interview with ABC and George Stephanopoulos where he said that he would consider accepting dirt from a foreign power as opposed to informing the FBI, and then walk back those comments. There have been increasing tensions between the United States and Iran over an incident with an oil tanker, and there are protests in Hong Kong. So naturally, the subject of my video this week is going to be on Justin Amash. So this video is going to be broken up into a couple of sections, as always. In the first section, I'm going to provide a brief introduction to Mr. Amash. In the second section, I'm going to be explaining why he is significant in American politics at the moment, or at least in the last little while. And then I'm going to give a prediction as to what impact he might have going in the future. So let's get started. So as much as I love talking about US politics, as my friends and family will tell you, I tend to stay away from talking about it too much on this channel for a couple of reasons. The first being that the focus of this channel was intended to be foreign affairs and global politics, and generally speaking, US politics doesn't directly affect international relations except in specific policy instances. The second reason is that a lot of the headlines relating to the Trump administration have been legal in nature, and my training is not in the law. My training is in political science, so I was less qualified to talk about legal headlines relating to President Trump than I am talking about the politics side of it. And this is why I'm choosing to talk about Justin Amash, because it's just purely a political issue at this point. Okay, so Mr. Amash is a Republican member of the House of Representatives in the United States. He is a member of the Freedom Caucus, what's known as the Freedom Caucus, which I can explain in a moment. And the reason he's making headlines is because he is the first Republican in the House of Representatives to be in favor of the impeachment of President Trump. The Freedom Caucus is a voting group of Republican congressmen in the House of Representatives that are in favor of traditionally Republican ideas, as in small government, no big expenditures by the federal government, and they are in favor of civil liberties, and Mr. Amash describes himself as a libertarian. The Freedom Caucus first came to political relevance in the United States during the Obama administration, when President Obama was trying to pursue policies such as universal health care. The Freedom Caucus attacked the administration for massive overspending and budgetary deficits. Since his announcement that he is in favor of the impeachment of the president, Mr. Amash has faced verbal attacks by members of his own party within the House of Representatives and within the Senate. After announcing that he was in favor of impeachment, he held a town hall in the District of Michigan which he represents, and I've included a link below to footage of that town hall meeting. After explaining his position, he did get applause from the people at the town hall, but as I said, he has still received a lot of friendly fire, for lack of a better word, from his own party, and particularly from members of the Freedom Caucus, namely Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows. At the town hall, he stated that he reached the conclusion that impeachment was the right path due to having read the entire Mueller report. Mr. Amash's move towards support for impeachment has underscored a certain amount of hypocrisy within the Freedom Caucus. Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows have been very close supporters of President Trump for as long as he's been president. And this, from an ideological perspective, is a little bit confusing because Mr. Trump has taken a lot of paths that libertarian types should find abhorrent, primarily for the reason that he has increased the U.S. debt so much in the few years since he has been in the White House. Now that Congressman Amash has taken a principled stand against the president of his own party based on the facts contained within the Mueller report as Mr. Amash sees them, he's now at odds with a party that was supposed to be standing on moral and ideological very firm ground as long as they were facing a president of the opposite party. They've now revealed themselves, particularly Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows, as simply attack dogs for the Republican Party. So they're essentially giving up their status as a special voting bloc or a caucus for specific interests within the party. What I find most interesting about Mr. Amash's move is it raises a question about whether or not it will open the door, or the floodgates, depending on how it goes, to other members of the Republican Party either moving towards the idea of impeachment or just simply being out in public with their displeasure with some of the president's policies and rhetoric. It's been reported for a long time that many of the members of the Republican Party who support the president in public simply don't have confidence in him as a president behind closed doors. And if Mr. Amash receives a certain amount of gratitude from within the Republican Party and the average voter in the Republican Party, I think we may slowly, or not slowly, see more and more congressmen and senators publicly denouncing the president. We've seen some pushback, for example, on the issue of building the wall on the US-Mexican border, on the child separation policy, and on a few other issues that the president has pursued, and there has been pushback from the Republican Party on these issues. But on the primary issues, anti-immigration, which is very important to the Republican base, most congressmen and senators support the president unequivocally in public. And as the 2020 elections get closer and closer, there are several, particularly in the Senate, there are several Republicans that will be up for re-election in districts that they may not win unless they take a more nuanced line on denouncing the president's policies and rhetoric. In terms of a prediction about what's going to happen in the next few months to a year, I think we will slowly see a slight shift, particularly in the Senate, because those seats are coming up for re-election in what they're called purple states, as in states that could go either way. And the reason that is important is because in an impeachment trial, if articles of impeachment are introduced in the House of Representatives, it then goes to the Senate to vote to convict or not. And that requires 60 votes in the Senate. And if a couple of seats in the Senate that are Republican move a little bit towards impeachment, that can make a huge difference about whether or not impeachment actually exists and is completed. For people in the Democratic Party and for people outside the United States who are wondering where the Republicans of conscience are and of ethics are, they are there, they do exist, but political pressure has basically made them hide in the shadows. But if Justin Amash can get away with this and survive politically, I think we might see a shift. Anyway, guys, that's it for me on this topic. If you've liked what you've heard in this one, please feel free to like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.